Square roots and cube roots. This is the digital lesson, and it starts with explaining opposite operations. So the opposite of squaring a number would be taking the square root. So for example, 5 squared or 5 to the second power would be the opposite of taking the square root of 25. And this symbol here is called a root or radical sign. Now, not all square roots have whole number answers. So if a square root is a whole number, we call it a perfect square. And the next slide shows the most common perfect square students are going to be dealing with. And they're in a diagonal on the multiplication chart. And the next slide has students typing in these perfect squares. Slide 6, students are going to use a calculator to find these square roots, and they're going to round them to the nearest hundredth. Then we move on to cube roots. So cube roots, again, we have opposite operations. So a cube root is the opposite of raising a number to the third power. So for example, opposites 2 to the third power and the cube root of 8 are opposite operations. And then a cube root that's a whole number is a perfect cube. So students are going to be typing in these perfect cubes. And then they have sentence frames here. They're going to drag and drop these terms into the correct place in the sentence frame as a review for these terms. Now we're going to move into negative numbers. So if your students haven't covered negative numbers yet, you can just delete these final slides. So it explains here that when we're taking the square root, for example, of 25, there are two possible answers, 5 and negative 5. And then the next slide, students are going to be typing in the two possible answers. So 11 and negative 11. Square root of 49 would be 7 and negative 7, and so on. Does that work for cube roots? Well, it doesn't work for cube roots because we're multiplying an odd number of times. So the cube root of 27 is always going to be a positive 3. The cube root of negative 27 would be negative 3. So then students are going to be typing in these negative cube roots. And then the final slide has a challenge for the students. What is the fifth root of 243? Or what number multiplied by itself 5 times equals 243? So that gives students a little challenge at the end. So this is a digital lesson, square roots and cube roots.